Yeah, we're all set. Unfortunately, we had one of our stickers. In fact, one of our spinning. So we have like a whole, but that's okay. And it's during the lightning talks, so we'll just have fewer lightning talks. But if there's anybody here that you think may have something to say. I'll make an announcement too, so anybody wants to give a is welcome to do so. Jenny's here. All right. Hi, everyone. If you would, hello. If you would, please go ahead and start to take your seats. We're going to get started in just 2 minutes. I actually have today a couple of our lightning talk speakers that have had to move to the next meeting. They'd preferred to meet us in March instead of today for reasons. But if there's anyone here who has last minute updates you want to add during our lightning talk session, then you're welcome to do so. I'll make a call for that later, but giving you a little heads up so that you can think about that if you want to give an update during that period. Okay, a couple more minutes. All right, since you were all so quiet and I got your attention, let's go ahead and get started. Well, welcome to the PGP, Pretty Good Policy for Crypto meeting. I'm Paul Brigner, the organizer of the PGP initiative and vice president of strategic alliances at Electric Coin Company, the creators and developers of Zcash. We are here to share information, build a stronger crypto policy community, and talk about pretty good policy for crypto. So thank you for being a part of this community. I want to first thank our supporters. This beautiful venue is made possible by the VanEck Digital Assets Initiative, or VITA for short. It's at the University of Southern California, here in DC, this campus, remote campus. And while I'm mentioning USC VITA, I would like to announce the upcoming USC VanEck Southern California Blockchain Conference that is scheduled on March 11th. So if you're not familiar with that, you should really check it out. The website is uscblockchainconf.com. It's on March 11th at main campus in USC. I'm going to be there, and I'd love to see some of the PGP community there too. I was there last year. It was fantastic. I think they had 1,700 attendees at main campus for a blockchain conference. So it's definitely something you don't want to miss if you're able to make it out to LA for a meeting. Aside from USC VITA, I want to thank our other sponsors for which we're very grateful, including Coinbase, the Blockchain Association, and my employer, Electric Coin Company. To ensure you are notified of future meetings, please subscribe to our Luma page, and that is at lu.ma/PGP for crypto. You can see the full calendar of PGP events for the full year. However, there is one that is not yet on the calendar that I'm really excited to announce today. That is the 2025 DC Privacy Summit is going to be held on October 16th. So please mark your calendar for that day. We will be sharing more information, sending out save the dates, etc. soon. But it's being held during the same period as it was last year during FinTech Week. So for those who are remote and would like to join us, that's a great time to come into DC to see a bunch of the FinTech Week activities as well as the PGP meeting and the DC Privacy Summit. Before we get started, I need to correct the record on something I said last time. I made a mistake and said we were kicking off PGP's third year. It's actually the fourth year we've been doing this. So that's an important difference in crypto. These years are dog years, as we all know. So each year means a lot. So 4 years we're at this now. And so glad that we're all doing this together as a community. working through all the uncertainty and chaos, which we're experiencing today. So it's par for the course in crypto, right? All right, let's get started with our program. If you were here last time, you know that we have a new format for this year. We start with 30 minutes of lightning talks, followed by a deep dive session curated and moderated by Mike Orcutt at the Project Glitch team. Today's deep dive focus will be on an inflection point for digital identity from mobile driver's licenses to personhood credentials. It's really going to be an outstanding program. But our first lightning talk speaker is my friend Dan Spooler from the Blockchain Association. He's a senior director of industry affairs there, and he's, if you're a member of the Blockchain Association, you probably know him quite well because he's the one who onboards all new members. Been a friend for a very long time, and I'm glad to have him here at PGP to give us an update. So Dan, thanks.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, everybody. Great to see everybody again. A lot of familiar faces. Today, I am excited for this panel later today, so I don't want to be too long-winded. But we've been very, very busy these last 90 days, certainly since the election, and even just in the past week, it's been somewhat historical. So today, I'm actually not going to go into my jobs industry affairs review. I did that last year. I'm really excited about doing that again, just to kind of discuss the growth we've seen in the industry and the hiring process. So I'll probably come back and do that in a few months once we've had time to do more analysis. But today I wanted to give everybody a snapshot into what we've been really seeing just in the last week alone here at the Blockchain Association and in the greater industry. So for those who aren't aware, there's been a CRA, and last week we had a little over 75 member companies within the Blockchain Association that signed on to this letter in support of Senator Ted Cruz's bill to repeal this damaging rule once and for all. So what is it? It's a common sense move that I think we should all support, and we're encouraging our champions in Congress to do the same. For those unaware, this rule has two big issues. First, it forces tax reporting obligations on crypto software providers that don't and can't act as brokers, forcing the creation of intermediaries, and it's undermining the essence of self-executing contracts and services. And that's the whole point of DeFi. Second, this rule raises privacy and surveillance concerns. It requires the DeFi industry and its participants to collect and store users' personal identifying information and report it to the IRS. We think this rule shouldn't be on the books, plain and simple. It goes against really what the intent of DeFi was meant for, and it also goes against congressional original intent. Also, another update this week, SEC's Commissioner Peirce, she released a detailed statement on crypto regulatory issues and requests, and she's been receiving feedback from stakeholders. So there's a public list of all the companies that have been visiting the SEC over the last really 2 weeks now, and it's fascinating to see. A lot of familiar names, a lot of companies that I think wanted to visit the SEC over the last 4 years under Gary Gensler, but didn't, and some did, and they regretted it. Now it is completely different. There's a new sheriff in town, Mark Ueda, and Hester Peirce are doing a fantastic job to the point where they've built out this crypto task force. And just that alone is just a major development and a big change just since the last administration. And within that task force, they also established the establishment of a Cyber and Emerging Technologies Unit, CETU. Again, great progress, really exciting for the industry. So that's there with the SEC, and there's more we can go into, but this is just a snapshot. And then lastly, lawmakers sent a debanking letter to the FDIC acting chairman Travis Hill. So debanking, of course, we've known has been a serious issue for the industry these past few years. Let's go to the next slide. So in the courts, more updates. The SEC dropped the Blockchain Association's and the Crypto Freedom Alliance of Texas's lawsuit. We celebrated this as a total victory. The SEC voluntarily dropped its appeal of this lawsuit regarding the dealer rule, jointly filed by us, the BA, and the Crypto Freedom Alliance of Texas. This dismissal, in our opinion, marks a total victory for the BA, its members, and the broader industry. Also last week, the SEC agreed to dismiss the Coinbase case. This was an agreement it had been reached to dismiss the SEC's litigation against Coinbase, and it marked, again, another major victory. There's been a few of these, actually. Robinhood was recently just, I think, yesterday. No news was dropped. So the industry really is benefiting, I think, from the new viewpoints and the new leadership of the SEC. And once Paul Atkins gets confirmed, I think it's only going to improve. He's been a great friend of the industry. Let's go to the next slide. So industry affairs, for everybody's awareness, we're hosting a major fly-in tomorrow on Capitol Hill. We're going to be bringing in quite a few of our members. We've had close to 50 meetings already set up. And this is going to be, again, focusing on the D5 broker rule, and we're going to be encouraging the rollback of the CRA process. So stay tuned for that. I'm sure there's going to be some people in this room joining us. We're really thankful for that and pumped up. Also this week, our team, we're splitting it up. Half of our team is staying here in Washington. The other half of our team is heading out to Denver. Big event this year. We never miss it. ETH Denver. It's going to be exciting. It's coming up Wednesday through Friday. So we will be there. And then also next month, the Blockworks Group, one of our close allies, is putting on their regular Digital Assets Summit. This time it's back in New York City. So we're looking forward to that. And then I just want to highlight a few other updates on our industry working groups. Let's go to the next slide. So since our summit back in December, we've really began a full expansion of these industry working groups. You can see there's a whole slew of them. Quite a bit are on sector-based. Another half is based more on professional qualifications. We've held co-chair elections, so these are now going to be administered, member-led, member-driven. We've held welcome and kickoff calls for just about all of these. We're going to get a few more this week. But as you can see, our membership is pretty widespread, and we're very, very focused on building out these topics. And then lastly, I just want to highlight this last slide. I want to really welcome some of our new members here. Actually, this was a record month for us. Since the election, particularly since January 20th, we've been inundated with inquiries from projects, layer ones, protocols from layer twos, companies and entities that have been wanting to do business here in the United States, but for a variety of reasons have been reticent to come here. And now it's completely changed. There's some of these just on this page here, as you can see, we've been in contact with really since, in some cases, years, but they were a little hesitant to come in. Now there's really not that problem anymore. And with this expansion, we're going to continue to advance our policy, and we're really looking forward to welcoming more. But I just want to highlight some of these, and we're excited for the year ahead. So if there's any questions, let me know. I'll be here for the rest of the afternoon. We're really thankful again for the partnership with you, Paul, and the PGP Breakfast, Coinbase, Electric Coin Company. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, really great work. For those who have been here, you know that I'm a huge fan of Blockchain Association. Aside from their support of this initiative, they're just amazing as a trade group for the industry. I'm personally excited to be part of one of those working groups as co-chair for the Privacy and Technology Working Group, along with Kurt Opschall of Filecoin Foundation. So tons of ways to get engaged there. I think these working groups are a great way for members to actually have more impact in the industry. So if you're interested, Dan's your man. Talk to him, please. Our next speaker is Yahya Fanusi. He's from the Crypto Council for Innovation, another great organization in the crypto space. Yahya, please give us an update on what you're up to.
Good morning, everyone. Didn't realize this would be slanted, so no, it's okay. It's okay. I only have a few minutes anyway, so it should be good. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. Yahya Fanusi at the Crypto Council for Innovation, or CCI as we call ourselves. I focus on anti-money laundering and cyber risk. I also kind of just have the national security hat. So when it comes to those sort of issues, I focus on, I'm your guy, hopefully. So just in a few minutes, actually what I'm going to do, because I wear a few different hats, I'm actually going to answer a question, because I was thinking about PGP. And if PGP is pretty good policy, I thought I'd just leave you with some thoughts on what do you need to implement pretty good policy, right? PGP. And I would say three sort of things, and we'll get into the technology, but I just want to frame it. For pretty good policy, I think you need vision, narrative, and a plan. And I say this reflecting on some of the research I've done, taking off my CCI hat and putting on my think tank researcher, national security researcher hat. over the past couple of years, I've done a lot of research on CBDCs and China's CBDC. It's known as the ECNY. And I actually have a paper that hopefully will be coming out soon relating to this issue, looking at the ECNY. This is China's central bank digital currency, their CBDC pilots that have been sporadically proliferating around China, very small footprint. But in looking at the ECNY, and these pilots these are retail CBDC projects, pilots that they've put out. One thing is that we noticed there's been a lot of experimentation, rudimentary experimentation around programmability in payments. And rudimentary in terms of, some of these pilots that the Chinese Communist Party is putting out for its economy, there's small things like escrow payments, right? So there's a service provider and you send your money to the ECNY wallet, and then there's a system where the vendor does not get paid until the service is provided, right? So basic, escrow payments, things to deal with counterparty risk, et cetera. But the backdrop to all of this, as we're looking critically at these pilots, again, small pilots, is that, the Chinese government has this idea of building a efficient, innovative, smart, when it comes to data and applications, what I would call a programmable state, right? Programmability, because you can program transactions, make things easier, but then also you're building a digital infrastructure through the ECNY, which is going to obviously capture more data. Now, obviously, in the back of our minds, most of us were thinking about, well, this doesn't sound like it would end well, right? It would not end well. And I think that's true. But this leads to my question of, okay, so how do we in the US have a pretty good policy? So what is the vision? In China, there's a very clear vision economically or digitally. There's a vision about data, a vision about what data means for the state, a vision about how the state is going to go about doing that. And then that leads to research, that leads to investment, that leads to pilots, it leads to all of government approach, and it leads to really the society hopefully acquiescing in their minds to this vision. And they have a narrative around it and they have a plan. That's what we're witnessing. So in the US, what is our vision for a digital future? What is our vision for data? What is our narrative? What is our plan? So before I leave, I'll reference a couple of things I've noticed in the past few months. One, there was this interesting paper that MIT put out with the Bank of England talking about privacy in CBDCs. So all this talk about CBDCs, this is crypto, why am I talking about CBDCs? But basically what this paper does is it talks about different sort of a spectrum of privacy cryptographic tools that perhaps could be used if someone were to do a CBDC. But the question that led me to as I was reading this paper was, all of these privacy tools that they're talking about in the CBDC context, I mean, these are tools that are in the crypto space, that are being used in the crypto space. Zero knowledge proofs, for example, right? That can be used in crypto and out of crypto, could be used in blockchain and decentralized systems or not. Why does the conversation around privacy and cryptography should not just be limited to CBDCs, right? So it made me think, well, if the world is developing, if we're getting more digital, so what is our vision here in the US of a private, compliant, digital environment? What's the vision for digital financial privacy in practical terms, where it's scalable, that reflects US values and the spirit and letter of the Fourth Amendment? So I would say, and I'll leave this because I know there's going to be a discussion about all these different technological tools that you all are developing, that we're developing. I'll end with another three. So that if we're going to have a vision for a digital future, we're going to have policy that talks about what is the technology, right? And I think that's probably where we have a lot of conversation already. Everybody talks about the technology around it. But it's not always coupled with, well, what are the systems? What are going to be the ways what are going to be the standards, and what are going to be the ways that we build this technology so that it actually works? And then three, what should be a regulatory regime? What should regulation look like in an environment? Again, all sort of undergirded in, we have this vision for what digital privacy looks like, what the digital future looks like. And so vision, narrative, and plan. So if we can come up with a vision for digital privacy, digital financial privacy, there's going to have to be a narrative. One narrative could be, maybe the narrative is one of making the Fourth Amendment digitally protected, digitally protecting the Fourth Amendment. Maybe that's a narrative. Maybe that would resonate with policymakers on the Hill, with the American people. I don't know, but that's I think where our discussion has to go. And so in all of our tech discussions in the crypto space, we're talking a lot about the technology, but I'll just end with, what is our vision? How can we communicate that through a narrative to policymakers and to the public, so it's not just a small segment of people saying this is what the world should look like? And then what is the implementation? What should be the plan? Those are the things that hopefully will come out from us having these conversations and us talking and doing what we're doing today. Thank you.
Oops, Richmond. Thanks, Yaya. Really appreciate that perspective. Very helpful and positive for the industry. So I'll keep that in mind. Okay, so now we're going to round out this first section of hearing from our big trade organizations with Chris from the Digital Chamber. So he's going to give us a quick update on an upcoming event. So Chris, please.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Christopher Klaich, Digital Chamber. I also lead our national security policy, and right now I also lead our energy and mining policy as well. Actually, I'll share two events. One, tomorrow we are co-hosting an event with Chainlink near Navy Yard. It's going to include Representative Style, Sergey Nazarov, the CEO of Chainlink, and Treasury's new crypto advisor, Tyler Williams. I don't know if that's his exact official title, but he's going to be kind of the crypto advisor to Secretary Bessent. So I don't have a QR code or anything to share with you, but if you are interested in coming more manual, please come see me. I know a lot of you guys, but text me, email me, or if you don't know me, I'd love to meet you, and I'll share the link with you. A little bit further down the road, in 4 weeks from tomorrow, we have our annual event. So it's going to be a great event. We have a lot of members of Congress, members of the new administration, hopefully more as they are confirmed over the coming weeks. Some of them can't obviously attend or take part until they're confirmed. But anyway, March 26th, you can look up, I think it's dcblockchainsummit.com if you're interested in attending that. So I'd love to meet you guys if I have not met you. So come see me afterward. Thanks. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, a big part of this is just keeping everyone aware of all the things that are going on. I've got a very long list of events this year that I keep track of, but these are great ones. And by the way, if you're going to come to the Chamber's event on the 26th, you should be here on the 25th. We're going to be doing this PGP meeting the day right before that. Is Natasha here? No, she was going to give a brief update. But how about Gerald? Yeah, we have Gerald Gallagher from... I don't know, you have so many hats. I don't know if I could list them all. I'll let you do that.
Thanks, Paul. Morning, everybody. I will keep this pretty short. So I'm Gerald Gallagher in real life. I'm general counsel at Say Labs. We're a Layer 1. I also co-chair the Layer 1 working group for the BA. So very excited about all the initiatives that have been discussed. The other hat I wear, one of them is I'm also one of the founders of DC DAO. So we're a city DAO. Some of you may have attended our summit last year, ETH DC. Our three pillars are basically community, innovation, and policy. So we've worked with all the trade groups that have been in the room and good friends with BA, Stand With Crypto, Digital Chamber. We try to be policy adjacent. And so this event is mainly focused on kind of builders in that community. We're going to do it again this year. It's April 24th. And so I can share an announcement maybe, of the invite link and that kind of thing. Just looking forward. We had about 200 people come through last year, and really good crowd of sort of builders and some of the folks in DC in the industry. So look forward to seeing you there. And as sort of Chris said, if I haven't met you, I'd love to meet you. So please introduce yourself if we get time later. Thanks, Paul.
You might notice a trend here. So on April 24th is that event he just mentioned. So the PGP breakfast is going to be on the 23rd. So you can just, whenever you're planning these things, build it into your calendar to do one right after the other. Okay, good. So actually, we had a couple of lightning talk speakers who had to change plans last minute today. So we're not going to hear from Venice AI or FathomX today. We'll probably hear from them next time. So I haven't had a lot of opportunity to tell you all about how much I am into AI personally. I am really excited about AI. I spend almost all my, aside from all my crypto time, I spend my other time working on AI and learning about AI. So I'm very excited about Venice AI. Privacy-focused AI. So we'll hear from them next time. It's a project that I'm really curious to hear more about, and especially from one of their top people. So given that we don't have a couple of those speakers, if any of you were here in the early days of these meetings, much of what we did was more roundtable style, and we opened the floor to anyone who had an update. So if anyone here has an update, we actually have a couple of minutes today when normally we don't. So I would offer that if anyone wants to give any announcements. If not, we're going to take our coffee break a little sooner, and then we'll come back at the scheduled time for our next panel. So opportunity going once, twice, any updates? Okay, well, let's network, have coffee. We'll be back and be back very soon for our panel. So enjoy. And if you haven't had breakfast, you should definitely take advantage of that.
Hello?
Hey, Kim, this is Mike. I'm the AV guy. Can you turn on your camera real quick? Okay,
Yes. Sorry, there's a delay.
it's okay. I just want to make sure that I can see you on the screen in the room. So you look good.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone, it's time to get started again. Please come on back to your seats, and we're going to have our glitch panel.
Alrighty. Good morning, everyone. Happy PGP. My name is Mike Orcutt. I'm the founder of Project Glitch. Project Glitch is a small team of journalists focused on the future of the internet with an emphasis on new forms of privacy and identity. And we publish a newsletter, projectglitch.xyz, and we program event content like this. We'll be here next month as well. We are going to spend the next 45 minutes talking about digital identity. It's an extremely complicated topic, and we can only promise to scratch the surface here this morning. We'll be zooming in on the debate, which has been heating up lately, over mobile driver's license technology. We'll also zoom out and consider a big picture, and we'll look forward to a future that's filled with AI. And one big question that we'll wrestle with is, what role can crypto play in all this? So without further ado, let me introduce our esteemed panelists. I think we only see one. Is Manu on the screen too? Joining me here on stage is Jay Stanley. He's a senior policy analyst at the ACLU. And on screen, we will have Kim Hamilton Duffy, the executive director of the Decentralized Identity Foundation, and Manu Sporny, who we're working on getting him on screen. And he is the CEO of Digital Bazaar and the co-founder of the Web Payments, Verifiable Credentials, and Decentralized Identifier working groups at the World Wide Web Consortium. To start off, I'm going to have the panelists fill us in a little bit on their backgrounds. Okay. Okay, cool. Okay, so one of the reasons I'm looking forward to this conversation is because each of the three of you are so concerned about this topic, but each from a different perspective. So I'm going to go around the horn, starting here with Jay, and then to Kim and to Manu. If you could each please quickly fill us in on your background and how and why you became so concerned with digital identity. Kick us off, Jay.
Okay, thanks. I work for the ACLU in Emerging Technologies. I've been working for the ACLU for a long time. I started 5 weeks before 9/11. I work on privacy issues are a big part of what I do. I'm paid to be paranoid. And, the ACLU has always been wary of having a national identity system, a unique identifier that tracks all of us. And so we fought the Real ID Act. And I monitored digital identity and engaged in it fairly heavily when the Obama administration ran a program called NSTIC, National Strategy for Trusted Identities in Cyberspace, which was sort of a multi-stakeholder process intended to create a new, basically ID layer for the internet. That kind of failed, and I was just like, this is all wheel spinning. I'm going to ignore this digital identity world, which is this huge, complicated world full of a lot of brilliant people who are working on a lot of brilliant ideas for having decentralized and privacy protective identity, but it just didn't seem to be going anywhere. And then it started to be going somewhere again, in the form of mobile driver's licenses, or MDLs as they're called. And so this international standards body, ISO, created a standard for a digital driver's license. This standard was created in secret by a secret committee that included the DHS, Apple, Google, the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators, and we don't know who else. China, Russia, who knows? But and I asked them who was on the committee that created the standard, and they refused to tell me. Sorry, that's secret. And this standard is being adopted at a rapid clip by states around the country, often by often allies of ours who care about privacy, just sort of naively. Oh, you have your credit card in your Apple Wallet. We can make it so you can have your driver's license in your wallet too. But the implications of having a digital driver's license that don't protect privacy are very significant, because, and the real game here is to create one that can be used online. And when everybody who follows technology knows, when you make things easy to do, they tend to be overdone. And we see this with surveillance, for example. And so the concern is that there's going to be a lot of incentive for every website to track you and say, hey, you want to watch a YouTube video? You want to log into your social media? Do you want to browse here at catbeds.com? Click here to send us your digital driver's license. They're going to want to do it for marketing. They're going to want to do it for forensic, so they can track you if you turn out to hack the site. They're going to want to make sure you haven't been kicked off the site before. That make sure you're over 13 so they can market to you, and so on and so forth. And so this is really has the potential to become a super cookie that follows you not only offline, doctors' offices, office lobbies, whoever else in the world that asks you for your ID, which is a growing list, but also online. And this ISO standard is highly inadequate. It has some good privacy protections, but for example, it allows it allows the ID to have a phone home mechanism where you present your ID to a liquor store clerk. The liquor store clerk pings the servers of the DMV and pulls down your information. Now the DMV has a bird's eye view of everybody that you show your ID to. So this alarmed us greatly. Put out a report in 2021 on this, and recently put out a paper with legislative recommendations for what we think states, if they're going to have a digital ID in your state, the state legislature should insist that it have these qualities. And the overarching point is that we have all this cryptographic techniques to preserve privacy, as in the cryptocurrency space. We should use them.
So Jay jumped the gun a little bit. I was going to have you set up the problem after, and then the next question. But let's keep going around the horn, because basically what I want to accomplish here with this first round is so that everyone can get a sense of who we're dealing with in this panel, because each of the panelists is bringing a wealth of experience and a slightly different perspective to this. Jay was at our privacy summit in October, raising the alarm about these mobile driver's license and digital identity, and that's kind of what led to this panel discussion. And he introduced me to Manu Sporny, and we'll move on to Manu. Manu, can you fill us in on sort of what you've been working on over the past decade, how you came to this space, and what makes you so concerned about digital identity at this moment?
Sure. So hi, everyone. My name's Manu Sporny. I'm one of the founders of a company called Digital Bazaar, which is based in the United States, in Virginia, the state of Virginia. And like many of you, I grew up with the web and the internet. I think it's a foundational part of an individual's ability to kind of communicate and engage with the rest of humanity, not just in the US, but globally. And one of the things that the web and the internet wasn't designed with was a way of strongly identifying yourself, or privately only revealing a part of yourself to log into a website and things of that nature. So I care deeply about the web. I care deeply about privacy and privacy enhancing technologies. We also, our company works with the U.S. federal government and state governments. So we work with U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. We work with U.S. Customs and Border Protection. We work with the U.S. DHS Privacy Office. We work with the state of California deploying digital credentials. So not just mobile driver's licenses, which Jay rightly points out, have a number of deeply concerning privacy issues, but we work on alternative digital credential technologies like verifiable credentials. Specifically, we're focused on using some of this advanced cryptography that's been used in the cryptocurrency sector and applying it to digital identity online. It's very important that people are able to keep many parts of their identity private when they're engaging in transactions that don't need a full-blown driver's license to do that engagement. So we have some, boots on the ground experiences on what deploying this stuff at the federal and state government look like. I'm also very involved in setting global standards. Not at ISO, but at organizations like the World Wide Web Consortium, who have a radically transparent way of developing these standards, meaning it's done out in the public. You can see every single line written in the specification. You know who's doing it. It has a very intensive privacy and security review. And so I'm looking forward to chatting with everyone here about how these technologies can be developed correctly in a way that they can be respectful of people's privacy.
Thank you. And Kim, you come to this topic from your own perspective, Executive Director of the Decentralized Identity Foundation. Can you fill us in on how long you've been paying attention to this stuff and what makes you especially concerned at the moment?
Yes, hi, I'm Kim Duffy, Executive Director of the Decentralized Identity Foundation. And I've been focused on the problem of giving people control over their digital identities and data for about 8 years when I started working on it from a lifelong learning kind of perspective. The idea that we are often beholden to institutions to prove our background, our learning experiences. And then the many identity problems to continue, if we are self-custodying our data, to continue to prove control over, our records and who we are. So kind of went on a rabbit hole from there, and then also the privacy considerations that come up from there. So Decentralized Identity Foundation, what do we do? What is decentralized identity in the first place? So we focus on providing people control over their digital identities and data. And in addition to the privacy concerns, I'll call out the current digital interactions on the web are very asymmetric from a trust perspective. We have to share a lot of data to prove who we are to reduce risk for our counterparty, but we're not afforded the same confidence in return. And so it's very vulnerable to fraud, identity theft, all kinds of harms. And so we at DIF seek to address this through standards, principles, and incubation, especially through our newly launched DIF labs to get this rolled out into the wild. Heavy focus of ours is privacy enhancing cryptography. That includes the ability to selectively disclose attributes, but then also zero knowledge proof. So this touches on what both Manu and Jay were saying. And back to Jay's comment about making it too easy to build a super cookie. I think a trend, a theme that's come up lately is that sometimes some friction is good, and we believe in building better defaults. So that's really what we're focused on, defaults that are more privacy preserving by design.
Thank you. Okay, so back to Jay. Going to have you reiterate some of the things that you said when you introduced yourself. I think probably very few people in this room have been paying close attention to the push by a number of state legislatures to adopt mobile driver's license technology. But if you have been reading what Jay has been writing, you might be alarmed. I want to read something that you wrote in October. Around the country, state legislatures are embracing the creation of a nightmarish electronic identification system that has the potential to track everybody online and off. just bring us up to speed. And again, you have to reiterate a few things. But how did we get to this point, and sort of where's the rubber meeting the road in the most alarming way, in your perspective?
Yeah, so I mean, the nation's DMVs, motor vehicle departments, have the power to put a piece of plastic in all of our pockets and all of our purses, and they have the power to put it all into our phone wallets as well, and so we've seen a growing number of states that have gone down this road and have started issuing digital counterparts to their physical licenses, and they lack the kind of privacy protections that we want to see. And I think that the potential worst case scenario here is that right now, if you want to have somebody identify themselves online, you have to go through this whole rigmarole, which is actually pretty bad, and we hate it too. It often involves face recognition, which is discriminatory and so forth. But that's a lot of friction. A website is not going to casually make their visitors identify themselves if they don't really need to. If you can just say, press here to send us your fully DMV vetted, cryptographically secure, inescapable digital prison driver's license, then many, many more sites, and online and off, are going to do that. Maybe 7-Eleven's, general counsel says we should start making everybody. You don't even have to have a human ask you for your ID anymore. It could just be a robot. Just scan here to enter 7-Eleven. And so. That's sort of the nightmare scenario that I'm really concerned about. And there's a lot of reasons to think that it would unfold, because there's so many incentives for gathering information and for, knowing who people are and the like. And I could talk at some point about what we think the fixes should be. I don't know if now's when you want me to.
Sure. I mean, let's dig just a little bit into the ISO standard a little bit more. And I'm wondering sort of, from your perspective and your view on this, why is this being pushed so hard? Who benefits, and in what way, from this particular technological model? And I guess what are the biggest problems with it from the ACLU's perspective?
So the banks are dying for a digital ID because they have the KYC regime and so forth, and they want this to happen yesterday. There are a lot of other relying parties that would love to be able to do this, and Google and Apple are behind it, I think, for unclear reasons. Maybe they just want to make your phones more useful to you. They may want to be middlemen, and they, one of the issues here is whether we're going to end up with a duopoly where basically Apple and Google have control over this and serve as gatekeepers and can charge fees for people who ask you for your identity. That future is fuzzy, but these players probably are circling around that, and certainly, especially Apple, there's a lot of reason to think that they're keeping an eye on those kind of possibilities, and so yeah.
Kim or Manu, is there anything that either one of you want to add to this? So we're still kind of setting up the problem here.
Yeah, I like to use an analogy. So, if you think about the sort of value prop, driver's license, inconvenient, having a digital version in your wallet, easy identification in the browser, this sounds convenient, sounds great. But let's focus on how you use your driver's license now versus what a digital variant of that might be. So say you have your physical driver's license, you're dealing with law enforcement. Sure, they're gonna run it and run a check against a database, make sure you don't have any convictions, things like that. But a more common case would be that you're trying to access some age-restricted substance or content. And so it's just you and one person. So the bartender or whomever who called the verifier, that's required to check your age. They go through training and, make sure that they're not doing irresponsible things with your identity data. So the digital variant, it's not the same. It's you, the verifier, and potentially many other parties, including data brokers, who can now augment their information on you. So back to the bar analogy, I like to say it's you, the bartender, everyone in the bar leaning over to look at it, and then also all the bars gossiping amongst themselves so they can sell you ads for more beer. And who knows, maybe your insurance company can jack up your rates because you're drinking irresponsibly or something like that. So we have to be very careful about creep under the guise of convenience.
Okay, so we have this problematic technological approach embodied by the ISO standard that seems to be moving forward at least in some states. But what can be done about this? Because I know Manu has been working on, you've been working on alternative technological models, verifiable credentials, a standards making process that's more out in the open. Can you run through some sort of alternative approaches to the way things have been going, and how can we get some of these alternative approaches to get a little bit more traction?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question, and I wanted to underscore what both Jay and Kim are saying. These are very real dangers, and it's been known at least in the identity community for years that this is not necessarily a path that we want to go down. Meaning, full identification for transactions where you don't really need that full identification. Okay, so two things matter here. One of them is that when these standards are being created, that the general public gets a view into exactly how the sausage is being made. It is important to understand that when a standard's put together, that civil liberties organizations, security professionals, privacy professionals did actually look at the standard and make sure that it had been vetted. So like I mentioned before, at the World Wide Web Consortium, especially around the verifiable credential work, that work has been happening for many years. The vetting, the public vetting, the public development of the standard, and all that sort of thing. So that's one part that matters, is how these things are built in the first place, and did they get appropriate vetting. The second part of it is ensuring that when you build these things, that you do use advanced cryptography. So we have ways, specifically from the cryptocurrency community, that allows you to be private when you engage online, right? So we have these things called, zero knowledge proofs that allow you to, for example, just prove that you're over the age of 21, for example, and do it in a way that doesn't automatically result in you being tracked. So to give you a concrete example, that it is possible to do these things the right way, meaning, developing it through like World Wide Web Consortium or a similar open standard setting body. And then two, if you look at, and I love the example of being above age to buy like alcohol, for example, that Kim used. There is a program in the United States called the True Age Program, and it is run by a group called the National Association of Convenience Stores, and that's 152,000 stores across the United States. And when they looked at, they knew they needed to go digital with the stuff. They wanted convenience, but what they also knew was that if they created a mechanism that tracked consumers as they went from store to store, that no one would trust the solution. And so, and this was 6 years ago, right? They made the conscious decision to build this in a privacy protecting way, and that system is now in production in all 50 states. So if you wanted to, you can opt into this system. There's still a right to paper. You can choose not to participate in it, but you can opt into the system. And when you opt into the system, when you go into a convenience store, you no longer have to show your driver's license, which, by the way, is a bad practice, right? I mean, you're showing 35 pieces of deeply identifying information just to buy a beer, right? You shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be doing that at a bar, and you shouldn't be doing that at a convenience store. So they've put an alternative mechanism in place where as you use these single-use tokens across the convenience store industry, those stores cannot track you. They're a one-off, you're over the age of 21, trust us, this person has been vetted sort of credential. And if we look at the right way to deploy this, if you look at the way the state of California's DMV has deployed it, they support both of these standards. They support MDL because, hey, when you're getting on an airplane, they really need to know who you are. And they support, hey, this person's just buying a beer. They don't need to fully identify themselves. So the state of California in their California DMV app supports both MDL and verifiable credentials. And when it comes to age verification, they support this mechanism called an unlinkable digital age verification. They support a true age. So all that to say that there are right ways to build this kind of solution, and they are being deployed in a responsible manner. And those are examples that perhaps the rest of the states in the United States should follow.
Curious, I have a follow-up on that. I'm curious about what's going on under the hood. It sounds like in this DMV app in California, from the user's perspective, it probably may feel the same to use one or each of these credentials. What is going on under the hood, though? How is it different under the hood? And I think the larger question that I'm wondering is, for a verifiable credential, is that necessarily decentralized, and does that necessarily call on technologies that have been developed in the crypto space?
Let me take the second question first. So is it necessarily, do verifiable credentials always work like this? And the answer to that is no, right? You have to be very careful how you design these things. It's perfectly possible to build a verifiable credential that is a tracking super cookie, and we know that's bad, right? We're trying to get away from that. And we'll get into some of the policy decisions that need to be made to ensure that happens later. But technology is a tool. It can be used to do good things, and it can be used to do bad things. And we have to be very careful about the way we use these technologies. Now, back to your first question around what is California doing differently? If you look at an age verification, like what's actually happening, so just think about, today in a bar, if someone cards you, you go to buy a beer and someone says, hey, I need to see an ID, you reach in, get your physical ID, and you show it to them. And what they're doing is they are depending on some other organization having vetted you, your age, and that's the DMV, your state DMV. And they're checking to make sure that the document's authentic and it's not a fake, right? They're checking to make sure the picture on the ID is you, and that kind of gives them an idea of this is your ID. And then they look at the date of birth and they go, okay, you're over the age of 21. That's the vetting process they do. Now, the interesting thing in the California DMV case is that they've already vetted you. If you have one of these digital IDs, they've already vetted that you're over the age of 21. And so you don't need to show your entire ID. You just need to show a proof that the DMV believes that you're over the age of 21, and that meets regulatory burden in many of the states, especially in the state of California. So what they're doing is they are taking the place of the clerk in the store, right? Or the bartender. They're basically saying, look, trust us, we vetted this person. They're over the age of 21. And then they're allowing the generation of these single-use age tokens so that when you show the age token, it is a privacy-protecting proof that you're over the age of 21 that the bartender or the clerk at the store can trust. And that's an example of the type of regulation or at least legislation that the states should be looking more at. Like, don't request information that goes beyond what the transaction needs. Hopefully that answered your question.
It did, and I'm going to ask one more of you, Manu, and then I'll turn a similar question to Kim. I'm just curious, how do you see the role of crypto and blockchains, the crypto space, I guess, generally speaking, in all of this? I think actually Yaya did a nice job setting up this thought, which is that maybe there's whereas there's a lot of talk about technology and cool technologies and even mind-blowing technologies in the crypto space, how does that get translated into real-world deployments in the context of ID?
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, that's an excellent question. So there has been, I'd say a lot of the most advanced cryptography work is happening in the crypto space, meaning blockchain. Like that has been true for probably 15 years now. That's where these really exciting privacy-preserving technologies are being created. Now, the challenge is that in order for example, a government to use those technologies, it has to go through a national standard setting body. So things like the National Institute of Standards, and for it to go through that, it has to go through maybe the Internet Engineering Task Force, the World Wide Web Consortium. And that cycle, that development cycle, is painfully long. It's 7 to 10 years for a technology to be invented. Probably another 5 years for it to be accepted as a viable path forward, and then another 7 years. So we're talking 13 to 15 years to get these privacy-preserving technologies such that a nation state can use it. And I think that's where a lot of legislative work frankly, and not just the US's national standard setting body, but many nations' national standard setting bodies are failing their population, is that they are not moving these privacy preserving technologies fast enough through the system. So part of the blame here is the slow movement of our cryptography standard setting bodies, not just in the US, but globally. The other problem is that the crypto space has eschewed, working with these national standard setting bodies, right? I mean, a lot of the blockchain and crypto community culture there is like move fast, break things, build, deploy. And there isn't so much of a focus on how do we make this technology, how do we fit it into a form that nation states can use it? So we are hard at work to get that work done, but we absolutely need support from both the legislation and regulatory side, as well as the crypto community, frankly needs to show up to these things to help us move it forward.
Kim, do you have anything to add there? I think you have an interesting perspective on this from where you sit at the Decentralized Identity Foundation.
Yeah, so I think to your question about the traditional identity and crypto communities and how we're sort of relating, working together. So I would distinguish between more traditional federated identity and decentralized identity, or SSI, self-sovereign identity. And in traditional identity, there is some of so we started working more closely lately with Ethereum Foundation privacy scaling explorations. And, so we've actually been digging into this a fair bit. And so in the traditional identity community, there is a strong aversion to many things blockchain, or maybe all things blockchain. And originally, maybe due to interpretation of GDPR, but then also a rejection, not just blockchain element, sort of right to erasure kind of concerns, but rejection of key standards that we think are important for decentralized identity and SSIs. That includes decentralized identifiers, and then a preference in general for federated solutions. So sign in with Google, sign in with Facebook. And so it ends up with more of a tolerance of the status quo, where companies have much more power over your identity data. So I'll draw a contrast. SSI, there is more philosophical alignment with the crypto communities, strong preference for individual sovereignty, and blockchain can play, distributed ledger can play a huge role in enabling self-sovereign identities or identifiers through a standard we call decentralized identifiers. Preference for decentralization in both communities, and very complementary. So the advances in ZKP, including the maturity performance improvement on client-side ZKPs in particular, are helping with adoption. And I feel like, that is an enabler that will help get it on the right side, help get it on track that we need to, standards progress. And because those also help the privacy guarantees. So that is a big focus of us with our privacy scaling explorations is what does it look like to try to harmonize decentralized identity standards with, this much more novel advances in ZKPs, including one that we're really excited about, which are, say an issuer of traditional identity documents. They're not issuing in a way that supports ZKPs or selective disclosure. But what Ethereum Foundation has built through their Anon-Adhar Open Passport is the ability to basically wrap something, add this composable edition of ZKPs, so that even if the issuer didn't start with this more privacy preserving method, you can then use it in ways that support selective disclosure predicate proofs. So, slightly different trust model with those. So we're focused on building those up to see what are valuable use cases for that. I think that we're working on that sort of alignment and helping to, do what we can to support that path to standards adoption.
One follow-up there. Do you have any recommendations for the crypto space, people that are excited about these technologies in the context of identity and privacy, for how to best engage with others that are working on identity technologies, both Kim and Manu?
Yeah, I think at Decentralized Identity Foundation, we have an applied crypto working group. And so that's where a lot of our work in this area is happening. So we have a lot of ways to engage. Check out our site, Identity Foundation, and, you can join in groups. And also we have a newsletter you can subscribe to where we talk about the work that we're doing.
Anything to add, Manu?
Definitely +1 to what Kim's saying. DIF is doing just foundational work when it comes to applied cryptography and privacy preserving technologies. There's also the World Wide Web Consortium credentials community group, which has 580 plus people. It's free to join, free to participate. Anyone can do it. And I really suggest that, people kind of dive in both at DIF and at the credentials community group because, a lot of the people that are kind of foundational, fundamental, key parts of the community just showed up one day and started participating, right? It's really easy, very open, transparent. We certainly need the help to move these technologies forward. And it can be a really rewarding experience, right? I mean, many people started on this work many, many years ago. And today they're being deployed at the state and nation state level. So, your ability to have an influence, even as an individual, have a global influence as a single individual is alive and well, certainly at DIF and certainly at the World Wide Web Consortium.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up with one more question, and we'll take a few questions from the audience if we have time. I'm going to zoom back out. One of the most fun things about being in crypto is hanging out in the technological weeds. But one of the things that I appreciate about Jay is that sometimes he just puts things in fairly simple terms in ways that can be pretty educational. And one of the questions that he's asked a few times in conversations that I've had with him is basically, we have all this crypto magic, and why aren't we using it? And that's kind of we're kind of wrestling with that in this discussion. But I want to wrap up there because I've got a question about that. But first, I just want to clarify with Jay. I want Jay to clarify what exactly he means by that. What is the crypto magic that you are referring to, and what do you see as the reason that we're not using it?
Yeah, the crypto magic, and that means cryptography, is things like zero knowledge proofs that allow you to prove that you know something without sharing what that thing is. For example, proving that you're over 21 without sharing your date of birth. And so what we're asking for is for state legislatures to pass laws saying, you are the DMV of this state shall not create a digital identity unless it has these 12 qualities that we outline. And an example, I don't think has been mentioned, for example, is not only proving you're over 21, but also proving you're over 21 repeatedly to different relying parties, to different verifiers, without using a unique token that's the same across all of those presentations, because then it becomes a tracking device. And that could be very important. For example, if you're visiting a lot of websites and you're proving you're over 21 and they're all part of the Meta, advertising network or whatever, they can all collude and look at, and even if it's anonymous, if one site can identify you, then everybody knows everything. And the ISO standard sort of just didn't bother to do that, because the ISO standard was all about making sure that holders of identities couldn't break them, and they were worried about the interests of the verifiers and not worried about the interests of the holders, which were completely ignored in that standard. And I think that there's a lot of reasons why we aren't currently exploiting all of the potential for us to have our cake and eat it too, to be able to identify yourself and prove things about yourself without violating your privacy. And part of it is just like we're just walking backwards into this because nobody's sort of bothering to do it. And we hear from state legislators who've never thought about it, and they do it out of naivete. You put your credit card in your wallet, we'll put your driver's license in your wallet, and everybody will think of me, your state representative, as very pro-technology, and I've made your life easier, and so forth. And so, there are interests at work who would love to use these systems to track people. I don't think they're pulling all the strings in some big conspiratorial way, although they certainly are pushing for the rapid adoption of subpar standards that we may yet get locked into for decades, because if it's going, you can show your Virginia driver's license in Maryland. If we're going to have that kind of interoperability, which everybody views as necessary in the United States, there's going to have to be a standard, and we're sort of sleepwalking into a standard that we could be locked into for many decades. So that's the concern.
And this is not only about driver's licenses. Kim and Manu were both co-authors on a high-profile academic paper last year, making the case for what the authors called personhood credentials, or digital credentials that empower users to demonstrate that they are real people, not AI, to online services without disclosing any personal information. So looking ahead, there's a problem that goes beyond surveillance and tracking, which is just keeping track of who is human and what is real online. And the paper describes personhood credentials, and the description, I think, reflects some of this crypto magic that Jay is talking about. And so the question that I have, again, for Kim and for Manu is, why, in your view, why is there not more eagerness in society to embrace this crypto magic for identity systems? Is there something specific that needs to happen here in DC to open the door for that? And what other practical steps can we take to make sure that society adopts the best possible tools for protecting human identity? Kim?
Yeah, I can start with that. So there are some things to make the crypto magic, from a practical side, more usable. This is something that we're very aware that we need to make better. I think that, the cryptocurrency Web3 community is very familiar with the idea of how challenging it is to get someone to, get their mnemonic seed captured, things like that. So a lot of the same concerns going on when you're dealing with these. And so, there's that. I think, though, on the policy side, what's really exciting about today is we need your awareness, and we need people to be able to know that there are solutions, but then also continue to advocate for the right to paper, as Manu mentions, which very frequently gets lost in these discussions. In the context of the personhood credentials paper and the discussion here today. I think the personhood credentials paper does a good job of outlining the case of, the urgent need for distinguishing people from bot activity. But, a risk, of course, is, we don't want to go from captchas are broken to log into the web with your government ID. So, some have proposed options for personhood credentials is, we have this MDL thing, let's just go ahead and use it. And we want to avoid that. We want to make sure that, we're not building a show me your papers web. And so, but then also on the personhood credentials side, I think it's important too that people want to use AI tools. And with the standards we've been talking about, we have the opportunity to let people do that, build it on more secure rails or a foundation that enables trust and privacy by design.
Anything to add, Manu?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Plus one to what Kim said. I wanted to underscore also what Jay said about legislatures kind of sleepwalking their way into this future that we don't want. Our experience in engaging with federal and state is the same. There are some people in federal that really know what the dangers are, and they're trying very hard to avoid those dangers. But when it comes to some of the state legislatures, or even some of the people that are deploying these digital credential technologies, it takes an enormous amount of work to bring them up to speed with the dangers, the privacy dangers of what they're contemplating on deploying. So if there is something that can be done in Washington and something that can be done in the state legislatures, it's to continue to educate the lawmakers about the dangers of rushing ahead, right? So as Jay said, I don't think this is some grand, conspiracy to try and track everyone. But we will sleepwalk our way into a bad future, just like we sleptwalked our way into having cookies on the web. Cookies are the fundamental mechanism that everybody uses, that sells data and makes money off of data, uses to track us on the web. And these are kind of the in-person, reincarnation of cookies. So we have to avoid that future, because in hindsight, we know that was the bad thing to do. Nobody intended cookies to become this massive tracking thing on the web, but it did. And it has taken us a decade to try